Chapter 4, Part 2. Claire stopped dead anyway, her face wrinkling. She put a hand to cover her nose and mouth. "It's you," she said, pointing at Jazz. "You smell like that." Sorry, it was true. What with all the contact she'd had with the gold and the dirty knife in her boot, she was pretty right. "I think I stepped in something on the way home." "I didn't smell anything when you came in," Claire said suspiciously. "And that's another thing," Aunt Nan said. She had been glancing around the room, but there was nothing suspicious to see except the unusual clutter. The curtains hung motionless over the shut window. The pile of bedding on the floor was still. Now she turned to face Jazz again. "You didn't call to say you were going to miss dinner again. I need to know where you go after school, Jazz. I need to know when you're going to be out late. It's common courtesy." "I know. I'll remember next time. I really will," Jazz said. Jazz said it as sincerely as possible and in a tone she hoped would close the subject. She needed to get rid of these people and look at the boy under the blankets. He might be seriously hurt. Aunt Nan was nodding. "You'd better. And you better take a shower before you do anything else. Throw your clothes in the laundry room. I put them in the wash." She made as if to kiss Jazz on the cheek, but stopped, wrinkled her nose, and then just nodded again at her. "And that's it? That's all?" Claire was looking at her mother in disbelief. "Mom, she's up to something. Can't you see that? She comes in late, smelling like dead skunk and sewage, and I don't know what. And then she locks herself in and bangs around and lies. And all you're going to say is, 'Don't do that again?' She gets away with everything around here. Claire, quit it." She said she was sorry. "I'm sure she won't let it happen again. If I did something like that, you'd skin me. But no, if Jazz does it, it must be okay. Well, I'll tell you something else. She cut school today. She left before 6th period." "Is that true, Jazz?" a new voice asked. Uncle Jim was standing in the doorway, pulling at his chin with long fingers. He looked sad. It was true. Jazz had left early to set up a trap for the vampire and shapeshifter. She looked at her uncle and made a regretful motion with her head and shoulders. "Jazz, you just can't do that. I'm trying to be reasonable, but this is only the 2nd week of school. You can't start this kind of behavior again. It can't be like last year," he thought. "From now on, you leave your motorcycle at home. You drive to school and back with Claire and the Audi." Jazz nodded. "Okay, Uncle Jim," she said out loud. "Now go away," she added silently. Thin curls of anxiety were churning in her stomach. "Thank you," he smiled at her. "See?" Claire jumped in, her voice hitting a note to shattered glass. "This is just what I'm talking about. You never yell at her, either. Is it because you're afraid she'll run away like she did from her dad's relatives? So everybody has to walk on eggshells around her because otherwise she'll just take off. Okay, that's it. I'm not listening to any more of this." Aunt Nan waved a hand at Claire, then turned around to shoo Uncle Jim out of her path. "I'm going to clean up the dinner table. If you two want to fight, do it quietly." "No, it's better if they do their homework," Uncle Jim said, moving slowly. "Both of you do your homework, okay?" He looked at Jazz in a way that was probably meant to be commanding, but came out wistful. "And tomorrow, come home on time." Jazz nodded. Then both adults were gone, but Claire was staring after them. Jazz couldn't be sure, but she thought there were tears in her eyes. Jazz felt a pain. Of course, Claire was dead on about the leeway Aunt Nan and Uncle Jim gave her. And of course, it wasn't fair to Claire. I should say something to her. Poor little thing. She really feels bad. But before she could open her mouth, Claire whirled around. The eyes that had been wet a moment ago were flashing. "You just wait," she said. "They don't see through you, but I do. You're up to something, and I'm going to find out what it is. And don't think I can't do it." She turned and stalked out the door. Jazz stood for an instant, speechless. Then she blinked and closed the door. She locked it, And then for the first time since she'd seen the goal, she allowed herself to let out a long breath. That had been closed, and Claire was serious, which was going to be a problem. But Jazz didn't have time to think about it now. She turned the clock radio on her nightstand to a rock station, a loud one. Then she flipped the covers off the foot of the bed and knelt. The boy was laying face down, with one arm stretched over his head. Jazz couldn't see any blood. She took his shoulder and carefully rolled him over, and stopped breathing. Hugh. The end of chapter 4.